Hey, everybody. Thanks again for joining me for another episode of the Alex Hayes Podcast. I am your host, Alex Hayes, and with me today is a very special guest of mine. She is the one and only Laura DiBenedetto, and she is here. She is let me get all of her accolades correct. She is a TEDx speaker. She is a best-selling author of The 6 Habits. She is the founder and CEO of Vision Advertising, offering advertising services for over 25 years and still going strong. She is also the founder of Sovereign Alpha, which helps entrepreneurs break the ceiling gap of 1 million in revenue and above. Did I get all of it right? You have a lot of accolades.
Honestly, the list is longer, but we'd both get bored. Let's just suffice it to say I've done some things.
She has done some things indeed. But most importantly, she is a very close friend of mine, and I am super grateful and humbled to have her on the show today. And with that, Laura, thank you so much for being here.
It's a pleasure. I'm excited. I told you, we're going to talk about whatever you want to talk about. So let's dive in. I'll share all the wisdom that you want. I got you.
Excellent. Excellent. So let's, for those people that are not familiar with who Laura is, go ahead, give us a quick background story, who you are and how you came to be where you are today.
Okay, sure. So I'll probably start with the most relatable. I might actually be the world's worst employee. Pretty crappy, in fact. I'm really terrible at following orders. And accordingly, I was 19 years old when I realized I don't really fit in. I tried corporate America, didn't fit. Tried working in small businesses, didn't fit. And I was like, oh, I think I'm not meant to be the employee. I'm meant to be the employer. Okay. So I started my first business when I was 19. Of course, I had hubris, but I didn't actually have skill. I thought I knew what I was doing, not so much. I figured it out along the way, though, and I figured out what works, what doesn't, what will kill you, and what won't. And along the way, I've figured out a lot of the things that I'm teaching all the entrepreneurs inside of Sovereign Alpha now, largely what not to do. But the 7-figure formula, it's really simple, right? But it's actually hard to execute just because there's so many like tiny little nuances that apply to every person. I've founded 7 companies, and I've also walked away from some companies. I've been in like documentaries. I've traveled all over the place. I've been on stages. I've done this, I've done that. But I think my favorite thing of all is it's really just creating change, because the thing I've learned about myself after 26 years of this, I'm addicted to entrepreneurship. I love this with my whole chest. It is so great. It really reveals who you are and what you're made of. And because I'm so addicted to it, when I see other people who are like, I don't fit, I'm like, ooh, have I got something for you? Let me help. Or if they're like, help, my business is broken and my body's falling apart. Hey, let's fix it. Let's put you on the path to like getting your life back and making money at the same time. So that's where we stand today.
Awesome. Awesome. Love it. So let's talk about vision advertising, right? There was a time in your career, you were building this business. You were doing the grind, doing the hustle, getting it off the ground. And talk to us about the evolution of Laura, of how do you go from owner operator and then start to go from owner founder? Like, what were some of those early markers that you had to change as a person? And then how did you do that?
Sure. When you realize that if you hire C players, you can continue to be the boss and can continue to be important, that is just bolstering your ego, because you don't actually love yourself and you need your business to prop you up. The more you love yourself, the more you surround yourself with A players. And A players will lovingly say to you, you're in the way. Can you please move so I can be awesome? And so like the transformation that I went through, I mean, entrepreneurship, I will say this until I'm dead. Entrepreneurship really reveals who you are. It introduces you to yourself. It's like the ultimate personal development boot camp. And I had to learn to love myself, and I had to learn that micromanagement is an insecure man's game, and a confident man's game is letting A players outshine you. And when I was first looking to extract myself from the day-to-day, honestly, out of exhaustion, because my insecurity was driving a lot of my actions, I had to find people who could operate on their own. And it really revealed a lot about, I guess, where I needed to grow as a person but also how to let go. And the biggest transformation, just work wise, was realizing, oh, I not only need to let go of the mechanics of this and the micromanagement of it, I also need to be okay with it being executed a little differently than I might do it. Like, you own the outcome. I don't care how we get there. Get us there. And that was a big, big, big change. It requires a lot of confidence in yourself, but also a lot of confidence in your own hiring abilities and your ability to give people ownership over outcomes.
So when you were recognized that this needed to happen, this personal change needed to go to move forward, not just for yourself, but also for your business, what were some of the markers or some of the characteristics that you were living through? Like, what did your personal life look like? What was your health look like? What did your mindset look like when you, before you made that conscious decision to advance yourself and your business into a new direction, right? With outside leadership, bringing on those A players.
Sure. I mean, everything was falling apart for me. My physical health, my mental health, everything, because I did what I now teach people how not to do. Is I had made myself essential in my business, and I was the bottleneck for everything. I was setting my health on fire. I was setting my marriage on fire, everything. And, a big part of that is why the book ultimately had to be written,
Mm,
because I ended up having to um reconcile and fix everything. But, before I actually fixed everything, yeah, my health, my body, my sleep, my well being, marriage, I mean, you name it, it was falling apart. Even my social life was falling apart. Um, because I just didn't know how to create success the right way. And then once I had time to think, I had gotten a few things right along the way, which thank God, right? Sometimes you can actually trip and fall in a pile of manure and still come up shining. And that, we all get that sometimes. Not always, but we do get it sometimes.
yeah.
And, I got very lucky in being able to delegate to the wonderful woman who runs my company now. And it gave me the luxury of having time. And it was just a really remarkably good hire. So I had the time to actually reflect, like, wow, cool. My whole life is on fire. I actually don't know what happiness is at all, nor do I know how it's created. So that problem created this 90-day experiment where I was like, I theorized I think happiness is actually a product of thought patterns. And what's a thought pattern but a mental habit? So I put myself through this 90-day experience where in 90 days, I completely changed myself from a very grumpy, sick, defeated person into a powerhouse of a person, the best version of myself. I was working on reclaiming my health. I decided to move to Maui all in 90 days. Like, I shifted my life massively from a place of authority, not desperation. And the book was like, okay, this is amazing. I'm sitting on something that the world needs. So I'm going to write this into a book. And you can do the 90-day experience. That's like a separate product, but like the book makes the all of the knowledge accessible to everybody. So that's kind of the journey there.
Excellent. And another follow-up question to this. Again, I'm looking for context. What does building a business that you are the bottleneck? What does that mean? Like, you hear that buzzword bottleneck, you are the bottleneck. You hear that a lot today in social media,
I
but what
do.
does it actually mean?
That means you're in the way. It means all decisions filter through you. Sometimes it means that certain work processes flow through you, but it means that the company doesn't run without you. So in my specific case, I was micromanaging a few things. Like, I wouldn't let go of certain processes. I was involved in sales like the whole time. I never like wanted to delegate that. I was like, no, nobody can sell it the way that I can, which is completely lie. It's so not true. And it was just one of those things where I was in the way and people could not move forward without me being present. So, me being the bottleneck, like, if you think about the neck of a bottle, what is it? It's narrow. It's a lot of energy being forced into a tiny space. And I made myself um the tiny choke point, and I did that because I didn't know how to let go of things. And of course, this was at first. Over the years, I learned to let go. Then I got addicted. I was like, ooh, oh, firing myself is great. Let me fire myself from everything. This is awesome. So then I was the anti bottleneck. I was like, no, we're going to savor that. Bye. Let things flow, do things without me by all means, be awesome. Like, I think a lot of my employees came to appreciate my joke. I would always like leave a meeting and it's like, Cool. What'd you guys accomplish? Amazing. What are you going to do next? Nice. All right. And I'd leave and I'd be like, cool, go forth and be awesome.
Nice.
Became my catchphrase, go forth and be awesome. I should
So I
make
think
sure to say that
you
to the
can make
community.
shirts. Yeah, shirts that say "Go forth to be awesome." I love that. I would buy one. So I think that's really, it's important that people realize what that means, right? Because there's building a business, and it's not necessarily you're building wrong because everything's got a season, but there is when you linger in a position of decision making, authority, centralization too long, you kind of are getting in your own way, and
Yes.
and I think right there is kind of a pivotal moment in somebody's business journey, right? As a
Hmm.
person, as an owner and a founder. What did that feel like for you to go through that? Like how did you recognize that this was not good anymore and you needed to change? And then how did you do it? How did you change? How were you able to make that decision? Like, this is the path that I need to go down.
Mm. Okay. I think I recognized it. One thing I'm really good at is pattern recognition. And I also don't really bring a lot of ego to too many things. I have a healthy self esteem. That's a different thing. But like, I don't need to be needed, not anymore. I think once I started to go through the process of like learning to love me, I didn't need to derive any sort of validation from the business. That was probably the biggest transformation is like, I
Mm.
don't need to be important here because I'm actually already important because God said so. Cool. You know, so just the realization of that alone, but then also, how do you get good at anything? You try it. How did you learn to walk? You walked and you fell on your face. It's the same process, you know? Hopefully, the way you learned to drive was not the way you learned to walk, right? But the process of learning to let go, believe it or not, that is a skill to be learned and mastered just like any other. I'm talking about walking and driving a car, but like running a business is a skill, being an entrepreneur is a skill, starting a company is a skill, letting go is a skill because you can't just be like, okay, have fun, figure it out. Like you have to learn how to let it go, how to delegate an outcome correctly, how to put the right person in the right role and support that person, build them up and give them full ownership over what's happening there. Honestly, for me, it was just kind of trial and error. I really didn't have an instruction manual. I didn't have a coach. I didn't have an advisor helping me along the way. It was like, well, I'm either going to drop dead or I'm going to figure this out. So there was some necessity for me existentially, either figure it out or drop dead. I was incentivized.
That was a good incentive to adjust. So,
Yeah.
as you're adjusting, what were some of the things that surprised you along that period? Right, as you're going through this adjustment period, and you're firing yourself from different positions and leadership or decision making bottlenecks. What were some things that surprised you, both good and bad?
It surprised me how awesome it is to let go of stuff and not be the bottleneck. It surprised me how capable people are. It surprised me how much they truly want to show up and serve and help. What surprised me is how much self belief people don't have, and how much reassurance they really need, how much they need permission. That surprised me. I've never been a permission seeker. So for me to find myself working with people who need permission, I was like, what do you mean you need permission? What does that look like? You mean you don't operate your life in wrecking ball mode? What? Okay. So I had to develop the skill of really pouring into people and giving them that self-belief and that self-trust and just letting them know I do trust you. You're okay. But I think also um, the reassurance that came with it now that I'm thinking about it is I remember people needing to feel safe that they could do this and they wouldn't be fired if things went wrong. That was a big one. Even with the woman who runs my company now, in the beginning, she'd always worked for larger companies. My company has always been smaller and there was more layers of management. When there's tons of layers of management, it's corporate, you can kind of disappear. And if you screw up a little bit, it's not really noticed. In a small company, you notice. Like somebody screws
Yeah.
up, it's like the whole company's like, huh? I think the biggest thing I needed to do is let her know I am not only giving you the autonomy to make these decisions, but I'm also giving you the autonomy to make a mistake. You get to make
Um,
mistakes because I trust you to fix them. And that
That's
was
huge.
probably one of the biggest things that has really helped her. And we have an excellent relationship to this day. And I think she loves working with me now. I mean, it's been 10 years. She loves working with me now because I treat her like an A player. She behaves as an A player. She is an A player. And an A player isn't someone who says, hey, what do I do? That's a C player. A B player will ask you. I mean, Alex Hormozy did a little thing about this publicly. He was talking about what, B players do, and they'll be like, hey, these are the options. What do you think we should do? An A player will be like, anyway, this went to hell, and here's what I did about it. Hope you like it. You know what I mean? I
Yeah.
think a lot of, I mean, so much about my career has surprised me because turns out this is my first time being a human and I've had to figure things out at every turn because I never had that mentor, advisor. In college, I didn't learn this stuff. Everything was a surprise to the point where I probably have permanent grooves in my forehead from my eyebrows continually shooting up into my hairline with like, really? It's like, I don't know. You would think I'd be pretty nonplussed at this point, but
No, that's excellent insight. And a follow-up question to this is going to be owners that are struggling with letting go. How do you wrestle with the two concepts of control versus trust, right? And how do you hold those two concepts together in your head as you are letting go strategically, bringing on A players? Like, talk to us about that dichotomy.
Well, if you delegate a task, you're still controlling. If you delegate an outcome, you're giving people lateral movement and trusting them to design the pathway. And that's by its very nature, you can't control that. You can't because you're giving someone freedom to design. Freedom to
Mm.
design is giving someone freedom to truly own an outcome. So I was interviewing a young man that, oh, I like him so much. I was interviewing him today with Mike. For those who are watching this, Mike is my right hand. He's the director of everything here at Sovereign Alpha. And I actually forget his actual title. I'm so used to calling him the director of everything. We were, we have fun here. But, we were interviewing this young man and like, I was blown away at his strategic thinking. And he was able to offer a few critiques to what we're currently doing. And he expressed an organic desire and he didn't come right out and say it, but like it just came through that he really wants to own outcomes and he wants to create the strategy. He wants to own a full outcome. And it was like, this is an A player and let's make sure that, this aligns with everything that we're doing. So today we're doing a demo day with him. So he's going to do 8 hours and we gave him some small assignments, but a lot of it is strategy of this is the outcome. How would you get there in 30 days? This is the desired effect. You get to design the path. You can tell us what to do. And I think he's excited about that. Now, if you had that conversation with a C player, they're going to slowly walk out the door, be like, nope, that sounds terrible, because they're not capable. Not everybody is a good sequential thinker. You need to be a good sequential thinker to figure out how do you get from A to B. Also, how do you get from B back to A? Like, some people can't figure out pathways at all. Some people can only reverse engineer. An A player is going to be someone who can figure out how to walk forwards or backwards to get the goal. And being able to get to a point of trust, I mean, it's the caliber of the person, but it's also just knowing and having the self-trust of I hire good people. I know what an A player looks like, but also I can't micromanage this. And you have to actively stop yourself from doing it. Like, it's a skill like not, like everything else that we're talking about. Like you can't be like, oh, I want to have my fingerprints all over this. You're actually going to kill morale if you do that. You're going to kill an A player and force an A player down into being a B player because you can't let go. I mean, honestly, figure yourself out, work on yourself and get past your insecurities and your need to be needed. Firing yourself is the most epic baller thing you could ever do. And it's a reflection of self-love. And your whole team will, honestly, I've said this so many times and it's true. Your business and your team is a reflection of how you feel about yourself.
Powerful stuff. And somebody that is in a position now where they're looking at their company, they're trying to figure out, how do I exit this company? Maybe they're considering selling to an outside party. Maybe they want to see if there's somebody they know. Maybe they want to stand up an operator like you did, but they're looking around at their current team and their bench is very, very limited. A bunch of C
Yep.
players, right? At best, maybe they have one B player, but it's your bunch of C players that are around them. How would you look at that situation and how would you say to that person, this is path forward for you? If you need to try to players, you recognize you need A players. How do you go about getting A players if you're surrounded by Cs?
Well, I think a lot of people make the mistake of confusing business with friendship. And if you have a C player in a role that demands them to be an A player, it doesn't mean that they are wrong or bad as a person, but they may actually be wrong or bad for the role. And your duty is not to be a steward of these people's lives. That's not your job. Your job as a founder is to be the steward of your company. And you're the architect of all your systems. If you know damn well that you have a C player in an A player position and they continue to fail and let you down, that's a failure on your part. You have to correct it. You have to get over yourself. Doesn't mean that you can't put the person in a different role if you have room in your company and you need that. Many times it's right person, wrong role. Sometimes you're just going to free them up so they can thrive elsewhere. And if you do it with class, you can still maintain the relationship with the person. But the reality is, if you need A players and you got a bench full of C players, that's your fault and you need to replace them with A players. Now, the consequence of this and the natural next question that you're probably going to ask, I'll ask it for you, is great. What happens if you can't afford A players? This is where you need to constantly, and this is one thing I'm always doing, constantly, not, I hate this term. It sounds like I've got bodies in my basement, but you need to be like a people collector. I'm going to sound like a little John Wayne Gacy. You know what I mean? Like, no, there's no bodies under the porch, but like,
Just
little bit. But like if you become like a true people collector, you're going to notice A players out there in the world. Build relationships with them, stay in touch with them, be friends with them. Be like, "Hey, how are you? I haven't talked to you in a couple months." Because, if you're constantly going through life collecting relationships with amazing capable people, when the time is right, I really believe that the stars will align. Mike is a great example of this, my director of everything, because I met him a year ago. He only joined my company a month and a half ago. We spent a lot of time just getting to know each other, getting to know how we think. And I knew he was an A player the first time I talked to him, and he was working in a different role. And I couldn't hire him yet. I wasn't in a position to do that. I hadn't even made a single sale in the business yet. But I also knew this is a guy that I'd like to hire someday. So, I made it a point to keep a relationship with him. Also, he's so pleasant and so, nice to talk with. That was a big marker for me. I don't want to work with people that I don't genuinely enjoy talking to. So it's like, okay, well, that's how you find them, right? And the thing is, financially, right? Like A players do command a higher salary, but also A players command a higher salary, meaning that you can attract higher quality work and you can sell at a higher price point. Sometimes you might need to like get a little bit of a loan or something to like bridge the gap for you financially so you can actually start to sell at a higher capacity. Sometimes if you get the right person, um they may absolutely adore you and adore the autonomy and what you're building so much that they will mindfully take a pay cut for the thrill of working with you and building alongside you. I've done that multiple times, where it's not been to my my abilities to bring on someone at a really high salary because we weren't there and I was trying to like step my way up. And I was like, damn it, I need this person, but I can only afford this person. And it's like, I ask for what I can't afford all the time. And I get a lot of yeses, I get a lot of nos, but let them say no. I
mm.
don't say no for them.
So shoot the shot. Shoot the
Yeah.
shot and go after them. Go find the A players and build relationships. Just keep building relationships.
Yeah, build the relationships and honestly, like, don't assume that someone won't work for you for the dollars that you have. My belief is like when you're trying to close sales and when you're trying to bring on someone that you really, really want to work with, if you first focus on the head, is there a good alignment here functionally? Like client wise, do they need what I have? Can I help them? Or employee wise, is this a good match? Is there a good skills fit? Then you focus on the heart. Do I really like this person? Do I care about them? Do I really want to spend a lot of time with them? The wallet usually has a way of working itself out if you satisfy the first two with enough intensity. If you like kind of halfway satisfy head and heart, it's like, yeah, I like them. They're okay. Yeah, I think they can do a good job. The wallet, that will be the determining factor for the conversation. But if you get someone where you both have a mutual affinity and you're both screaming from the rooftops, I love this person. Oh my God. And you love the work and you're both excited about the thing, you'll figure the money out. Each party will maybe give a little and you meet in a place where it's like, how do we make this work? Because we both want to work together versus I'm pursuing you, you're pursuing me. That's an imbalanced relationship. But when you take the advice I've just given you of being the, non-creepy people collector and you really just build relationships and you satisfy the head and the heart first, the wallet always finds a way to work.
And where would you recommend people go to find these A players to start building these relationships? Like what's worked for you in the past to find your current operator that you have in place at Vision Advertising? And what are some steps that these owners can do right now to put themselves in a position to start building these relationships?
Sometimes I've tripped over people by accident. That's the God's honest truth, and you will too. But the other reality is, and I say this kind of joking, but you actually have to leave your house. Post COVID, the idea it's like I have to put on hard pants. What? You do have to leave the house. Like I met the woman who runs Vision at her employer because I was pitching to win their business. I met Mike in Austin, Texas at an event for his employer. And I've met lots of other people. In fact, I met a large collection of A players when I was out in Boise at some recent events. And it's like, you know what? You're amazing. You're amazing. You're amazing. I'm just going to keep in touch with you. So, like, I go to things. I actively sell. I travel. I'm like very active in my own life. I meet people. I network. I pretend I'm an extrovert. I do all that fun stuff. And if you actually leave your house, put on the hard pants, and pretend you're an extrovert, you will meet A players because that's what they're doing.
Interesting. Is it safe to assume or to infer from what you just said that most A players already are employed by somebody else? And the goal is not necessarily to try to get them on the spot, but it's more to cultivate a relationship with A players that already work for somebody else, because you just never know when the right time in their life is going to open them up for a new change or a new position.
Yeah, for sure. A players, uh, I mean, they're probably highly valued by their employers, and they're probably just being an A player for somebody else. But I find what happens is sometimes A players can often be abused and they can be worked to death because they are A players. And sometimes it's a cultural misfit. Also, sometimes this is interesting. A players sometimes are attempting to run their own business and they're just not doing a good job because maybe they're not meant for entrepreneurship. So I don't know. There's some guy out there that wrote a book about how like there's visionaries and then there's integrators, and those are like the two major roles you need in any company. But let's say an integrator starts a company, that's the person who's really good at doing and continuing things. The visionary is the one that thinks of stuff. An integrator is going to struggle because they're very task driven and they're not very initiation driven. That person is probably never going to thrive as an entrepreneur, but it doesn't mean they're not an A player. It just means that it's like asking a fish to climb a tree. So if you meet sometimes struggling entrepreneurs who love independence, they are an A player, they have high agency, they very intelligent, and you're a visionary, amazing. You have to wait for this person to decide, I hate this and I don't want to struggle anymore. I need a visionary and I'm happy to be on board with you. That's happened to me more than once. I've, worked with entrepreneurs. The thing is, like, as an entrepreneur, we both are. I hate being told what to do. Hate it, right? I'm an A player, you're an A player. And the thing about A players is you have to know yourself so well that you see where you fit. So I'm a visionary. I suck as an integrator, suck. So knowing that, I knew that the very first thing I had to do in building this company number 7 was I had to force myself into the integration role and the visionary role for the first probably 6 or 7 months, knowing that the very first hire I had to make for my own existential well-being and the existential well-being of the business is to bring on an integrator because I'm terrible at it and I punted hard, but one cannot punt forever,
Yeah.
right? So, everything that you asked, yeah, it's true. Like they're probably employed, but they may also be miserably self-employed too.
That's fair. Fair points. So let me ask you another question that kind of pivots in a little different direction, because something that I think drives a lot of holding on to things for small business owners is the concept of financial security. And
Yeah.
if I let go, does everything stop? Right? If I let go, if I and start rocking the boat, everything's fine right now, right? Everything, I got money coming in, I'm regular. I got the lifestyle I'm fine with. I've been fine with it for over 2 decades now. Like what's the big deal? But
Got it.
what would you say to somebody about how to overcome the financial insecurity, the fear of financial insecurity about change and going through this door of standing up an operator? and exiting through standing up somebody else?
Usually founders make the mistake of letting go of everything except for your revenue engine. And then they try to step away, and then the revenue engine stops running. So, of course, they're afraid. They should be afraid. So, the thing that I would say is, let go of certain things, like let go of I don't know, the operations department, like let things go department by department. Because when you're a company of one person, it doesn't mean you're not departmentalized. You may have 10 departments, but you operate all of them, which sucks, right? Because that's startup life for a lot of people. But as you start to add humans, you want to add people who do certain things. So I have never been the accounting department ever. I've outsourced that since the beginning because that's one of the easiest things for me to outsource. I've found people under $1,000 a month. I'm like, great, I'm awful at this. You do it. Because if I do it, actually things will start to fall apart. Great. So start with the things that you're awful at. But then the things that you're actually good at, that's when it's harder to let those things go. But start with the things that are probably less consequential to you. And then build trust, build the system, teach yourself how to let things go, teach yourself how to get good at it. And then when you finally start to let go of the revenue engine, that one will probably take you the longest because it's the hardest thing in any business is to predictably build your revenue engine. But when you do that, that's the thing that you should be designing it from go, which you're probably not doing. Listeners of this podcast have probably been the revenue engine and it's a one person engine, and that's fine. But if you're ever thinking that you want to exit your business 5 years down the road, 1 year down the road, you better build a revenue engine that doesn't involve you. You can design it, you can build it, but this is where you need marketing to drive inbound traffic to you, and you need closers, maybe one or more on your team. But like, you actually have to design a system that predictably brings money into the business without you. That's how you actually get the highest multiple, is building a revenue engine. So build the damn thing, you know?
What would be your rebuttal if somebody says, "Well, all my business comes from word of mouth"?
I mean, after I choke on my coffee and quit laughing maniacally, what I will say to that is that always dries up. That is not predictable. You can't sell that. The moment you try to sell a business and exit a business, the referrals will stop because you're no longer there. So if you want to actually have a company to sell or to pass to your kids or do anything other than die with, you actually have to build a revenue engine anyway. And waiting for the occasional good luck and goodwill of people to refer to you, that is not a strategy. That's a fallacy. You're lying to yourself. So, yeah. Yep. I openly mock that position. Like, that is hilarious that anyone thinks that's a strategy because it's not.
Pretty strong words.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
said that powerfully on purpose. Like, if you actually think that referrals are a strategy, you're deluding yourself.
Yeah,
I don't lie to people, Alex. This is why we're friends.
absolutely. So let's talk about how your transition went and when did you first experience exiting from standing up your operator? Talk to us about what that felt like and your move to Maui and what were some of the things that you finally got to enjoy that maybe you were putting off because the business was controlling your life instead of freeing it.
Well, I mean, first letting go, it felt really foreign at first. And I remember bringing her on and be like, okay, well, we're probably going to have a 3 year transition. No, we had a 1 year transition. I never let go of a whole company before. It was my first time doing it. I was like, oh, the first year, well, you'll just watch and shadow me. The second year, we'll do it together. And the third year, I'll watch and shadow you. Nope. Mm-mm. I found myself much sicker and a lot less okay than I thought I would be. So the acceleration was forced forward. But this is the thing about an A player. She was just like, okay, this sucks and let's go. It was both.
Mm.
Not this sucks, I'm going to lay down and die. It was like, okay, this sucks. I thought I had 3 years. Now I have one. Okay. So we figured it out. But the process was, I think, probably a little scary and stressful for both of us because neither one of us knew how to do it. It was my first time doing it. Also, it was really freeing, and oh my God, you asked me like what I finally got to do. Try everything, Alex. I'll take everything for 500. It was, it's like I got my life back. It's like I got my childhood back. I moved to Maui because I wanted to feel like a kid again. I wanted to play with sea turtles and poke around in tide pools and watch sunsets and watch waves play in the water and, just go to the beach every day. And it was so fun. And like, even after I retired, I was 37. It's just like I didn't even know what to do with myself at first because I wasn't used to having my hair not on fire. I was like, now what? I ended up taking a bunch of culinary classes to get really good at French pastry. So now I make French macarons like the pros do, which for anyone who's ever had them or knows how to make them, there's somebody listening to this is like, I know how hard those are. Oh my God, that's a skill. Yes, it is. Yeah, and living in climates of varying humidity that will affect the outcome. But I learned how to do that. And I started mastering things that I just wanted to do that brought me joy. And I started painting more. I'm an artist. There's a painting behind me on the wall. I painted that. It's actually one of the worst paintings I've ever made because I'm better than that. So, and that's pretty good. So objectively, it's okay. So there were just so many things that I just finally got to do. Like so many things I think that most people take for granted. Like I went for walks. I started to pay attention to my health again. Started healing what was wrong, physically. I started sleeping normally. I started, fixing what was turning into a terrible marriage. Like, I cannot begin to describe to you what that freedom gave to me. And, it was after I had been retired, I think for 3 months, 4 months, something like that. We went to Maui to celebrate my retirement. And I was just watching whales play in the water. I was like, man, I'd love to live here. My husband was like, yeah, me too. And I'm like, huh, want to? And he's like, yeah. And he thought I was kidding. And I was like, seriously? You want to live here? And he's like, wait, are you serious? Yeah. You want to live here? Because we will. And he's like, I don't believe you. Don't toy with me like that. I'm like, I will go home and I will put the house on the market in 2 months after we get it ready for sale. You in? He's like, yes. 6 months later, we lived there. It was the wildest thing I've ever done. It was amazing, crazy. But it's like I finally like letting go, learning to actually delegate outcomes, retiring and actually building engines that run without me gave me my life back. I finally got to be joyful, childlike, feminine, soft, free. So anyway, I'm obsessed with freedom and maybe now you know why.
That's beautiful. I love that. And so many people get trapped inside of their business and the business controls and dictates the day to day for them. And they live the same 12 months of their life on repeat.
Yeah.
And it's easy to forget that there's more to life than just going through motions. So
Yeah.
I think that's powerful. That's super powerful. And I appreciate you sharing that. Talk to
Thank
me a
you.
little bit of, yeah, no, talk to me a little bit now about like that transition also because so many people regret leaving their business or not being needed and they need to fill that void because us we're entrepreneurs, right? Entrepreneurs aren't really the retiring type, and clearly you're still active and you have other business ventures, you've done other things since you've moved to Maui. Now you're back stateside or the greater lower 48 side. So talk to us about
But to be clear, I went from snowy and cold and unhappy to the free state of Florida with palm trees and alligators.
that's
So,
true. That's true. So you did still trade up. So
yeah.
well, I love that. So, but talk to me a little bit about how did you go through that next phase of your journey, of your personal journey, entrepreneurial journey, and how did you come back to where you are today? Like, what was that process like, and how did you suffer from any type of anxiety or depression or anything, or missing something, or did you just go off and continue, right, and just keep building?
No, I mean, the thing about, my book and that whole 90-day exercise that I put myself through, that was so transformative. I was like, throw all the work out the window. Bye-bye. I'm gonna go be a kid and have fun. And life was amazing. I was living my absolute best life. And then I wrote the book because I wanted to. It was a fun project. It's not something that, a book is ever going to make you millions unless you're one of the lucky few that makes it to the New York Times bestseller list. That was never the point. I just really wanted to do it. So I started doing a lot more things because I wanted to. But like also I love business so much that I was like, I'm going to turn this into a business because I want to. But then this was interesting. You know how they say that people plan and God laughs? You know
Yep.
that? Yeah. A little thing called COVID happened and punched my company straight in the gut. And I had to unretire very quickly and go save my company from the brink of disaster because COVID we could handle. The woman who runs my company, her name is Julia. Julia could handle COVID, but what she couldn't handle was getting cancer at the exact same time.
Mm.
So we got a double whammy. So like she's amazing. She totally could have handled the COVID thing and she had started to handle it, but then she's like, I have cancer. I need a lot of time off. I have to go deal with that. Probably the worst possible timing for her, for us, for everybody. But I was like, okay, well, the only one who can run the company at this point, and she got the diagnosis, she had to immediately begin treatment. It's not like I had a lot of time to find an A player to replace her, train her. Well, the only person who could do it quickly enough and urgently enough was me. So I had to unretire. I had no choice. And to be honest, I actually went back very resentfully. I didn't want to. I was very pissed off that I had to go back. I mean, I love Julia and I wanted to take care of the business. I love the clients, but I was like, I'm done. I shut the door. I'm mad that the door is open again. Like I was really pissed. So some people may struggle with feeling like, oh, I shouldn't have let it go, but it's because that defines who they are. I moved on and I had other things that gave me joy. I moved to Maui. I wrote a book. I was having fun and I was doing other things that gave me life. But for people who do what my grandpa did, they retired and then they sat on the couch. Well, of course you're unhappy. It's because you lost your sense of purpose. And your
Mm,
purpose doesn't have to come from your profession. So in my case, I was very bitter about having to go back, but I have to admit, it did reignite my passion for entrepreneurship and my passion for working with entrepreneurs. I knew that Julia would be back at some point, and she is. And for all those wondering, she's fine and she's back in charge and everything's good. I want to help business owners, and that's what I'm doing now with Sovereign Alpha, but I knew I wanted to help them in a bigger, more impactful way because, it's a marketing agency. What does it do? Marketing. That's one department of a business. And I've always had a passion for the people who create the businesses, and especially with the self mastery that the book reveals to people and all of the lessons of business. It's like, I can't operate in such a limited capacity anymore. I have 20 of business wisdom and human behavioral insights. I did so much research to understand behavioral psychology that it's like it's all connected. So it was like, well, marketing is no longer enough. I now want to work with entrepreneurs to help them build the system. And, for years, I was always helping people building the system, but they hired me like as marketing strategist, but it always dipped a toe into the business strategy. And sometimes it was all business strategy. Then I started doing some coaching with like life coaching, which I discovered very quickly. I hate this stuff and I'm good at it. Which is really weird. Yeah, it's totally weird. It's like, I see what you're doing, why you're doing it, and I see all your daddy issues, and I absolutely decline to talk to you about it. Like, no. But I realized that the happy place for me is doing what I've always done. I'm a world-class business diagnostician and strategist. That's where I belong. And when someone is standing on their own foot, it's like, hey, you're in your way. Hey, your insecurity is showing. Might want to work on that. And it's like, I don't need to dive into the weeds of it. It's like, here it is. You work on it. This is the issue. So now I'm at a point where, like, yes, I am very blunt about the feedback because I don't need to gift wrap everything. I work with tough people who are doing tough things. Right. So, like, I went on this whole journey and it began with retirement out of necessity, turned into retirement of joy, turned into I love doing projects, turned into oh crap, I have to go save my company from disaster, turned into oh, maybe I don't actually need to retire after all. I just don't want to do that anymore because it feels very limiting and it's not fun anymore. And turns out I really just need fun. So now I really want to help entrepreneurs and I want to help them in a bigger, more important way. And I think that's what I'm going to do. So that's where Sovereign Alpha came from. You have to have a purpose in your life.
absolutely. I love that. And I mean, that's further, I call this the Michelangelo principle, where your next masterpiece is built on the foundation of your last masterpiece. And it's exactly what
Yeah.
your life has been, one masterpiece after the next. So no, it's super, super awesome to see and to get a picture of your journey of where you went from and how you got there and to where you are today, and to help other entrepreneurs, founders, owners that are still stuck in operator mode, and they
Right.
have successful businesses. So they're stuck in their operator mode and they don't know how to go from operator to investor in their own company and enjoy the next stage, the next season of life, in a way that gives them control and clarity. So with that, this is a great time. Laura, tell everybody where they can find you.
So honestly, the best place to find me is connect with me on LinkedIn. It'd be really great to connect with you. And if you find me on LinkedIn, Alex, I hope you're going to put the spelling of my name and the link right in the show notes because good luck to everybody spelling it. But if you connect with me on LinkedIn, let me know that you heard me on this show talking with Alex. I'd love to say hello to you, tell me all about your business. And, don't be shy. Like, hit me up in the DMs and let's talk. If you want to figure out how to expand your business and build your revenue engine, I can help you do that. And Alex is there to help you. And you're like, you know what? It's time to go. I think, Alex, the one thing I know about you, my friend, is you're really good about the whole next chapter thing. And I think when people are afraid to let go, it's because they don't know what's next. And like the big emptiness of what's next is really scary. But that's like, that's the one thing that really stuck out to me right away, beside all the great business skill and knowledge that you have, is like you're so good at helping to crystallize what's next. So the exit isn't so scary. You take the great unknown and turn it into a great adventure. So that's amazing. And I love that people have you for that.
I appreciate that very much. Yeah, no, we'll put a link to all of your socials, to your website where people can find you. She does webinars. If you haven't been to one of her webinars, please, next time you have one up, register because it's worth it. Definitely worth attending. So we'll make sure we have links for everything right down below with the correct spelling of your name and a direct link to your LinkedIn profile. So,
Thank you, Alex.
yeah, no, my pleasure. And this has been fantastic. Laura, one piece of wisdom, boil everything down into a single first principle wisdom. Do you want to leave last words to our audience of founder entrepreneurs, longtime business owners?
Gosh, I feel the pressure. I would say do things courageously and just trust yourself. If you trust in yourself, the next step will work out because you got it. No matter what it is, you got it.
Awesome. Love it. Trust yourself, be courageous. Excellent last words. Laura, thank you so much for being here. Thanks,
Thank
everybody.
you.